Hey guys, so let's talk about bubble exits and sparkler exits for a moment. So, bubble exits, first of all, when sometimes a couple will leave their church or their ceremony site and everyone, like after they just got married, everyone will line up and they'll like blow bubbles and they'll walk through. Sometimes you'll also see like the ribbons are very popular. Um, and then a sparkler exit sometimes is at the end of the reception. So a lot of times people picture it's dark outside, and everyone has a sparkler and they make a little tunnel for the couple to walk through, and like everybody's lit up by these sparklers, and it's just a really cool mood. So let's talk about bubble exits, or any exit that is right after your ceremony. First of all, consider the fact of where the exit area of your venue, your church, is, what time of day that's going to be, and if it's going to be full sun that day, are you going to be shined in the face with light? There's not much we can do about those things, but it's something that I like to have my couples consider just so they have an expectation of how those photos are going to look versus maybe some other photos that they've seen of other weddings before. The biggest thing I can say as a photographer is have people in your bridal party or in your family who are ready to help and direct people on what to do, where to stand, because if you don't have anybody in charge of that moment, people just don't know what to do. And a lot of times they're standing in the way of where I would need to stand to even get a picture of you. I've been to weddings before, not my own that I'm shooting, but just helping other people, where the photo just doesn't happen because there's no organization whatsoever, and the photographer is trying to get through and tell people what to do, and the couple comes out and the photographer couldn't see them. So that's not what I want for you guys. Obviously, we want to be way more organized than that. And so have someone there to kind of direct people. Don't put it all on your photographer, because, we are trying to make sure that we're ready to capture the moment. And if we're too focused on directing people, we're not going to be ready. Another thing to remember when you're doing these exits, whether it's a bubble exit or a sparkler, is to make sure that your photographer connects with you first before you walk out. So a lot of times I will go outside and make sure that people are like forming a line. I'll try as much as I can to direct the people that are helping me. And then I'll go back inside and connect with the couple, and I might say something like, okay, I'm gonna go back out there, just count to 15 or whatever, and then go for it. And maybe you want to stop at the top of the steps here and give a smooch, or maybe you want to dip her. Like, what do you guys want to do? And we can kind of get a little bit of a plan so that, yes, we're capturing this moment, and it looks candid, and it is, because everyone's celebrating. But you guys also feel confident in what you're doing so that you end up with a really, really cool shot. Another thing too is to consider, making sure that your bridal party or your most important people, where they're standing with where like most of the photos are going to happen. So having them right there in the front as you come out, and maybe put your hands up in the air, having them around you in that first row might be something you consider. All of these things are very much in the moment, and we want to just be in the moment, but there are some things that we can do to enhance the photos that you end up with too. So let's move on to sparkler exits. So the first thing that I notice people don't necessarily know to consider with sparkler exit is the time of day. So a lot of weddings are happening in the summer, and if you're a summer wedding, or maybe you haven't, and I'm telling you right now that the sun doesn't go down very early in the summertime. Here in Ohio, at some of the, our longest days of the summer, it's not really fully dark until like way after 9 p.m., sometimes 10 p.m. It's finally dark. And so, we don't have to wait for it to be completely dark to have a really cool sparkler exit photo. It can be dusk. As long as we're in a place that isn't, full light, and we can actually see the sparklers against something dark, the sparkler photos can come out really cool. And, I hear different opinions on this, like, oh, it looks stupid. We went out for sparkler exit and it wasn't even dark yet. And I hear these negative things, but honestly, who cares? Like, if you like the way the photos look when it's at dusk and you want those, let's plan for it. It's fine. Let's plan a spot and a time that makes sense. Another thing that people don't consider sometimes is that, oh, well, I don't have my photographer until the end of the night, and oftentimes you don't. And that's totally okay. But I can't do a sparkler exit because by the time we would do one at the very end of the reception, my photographer is going to be gone. Well, I've had couples who plan their sparkler exits in just the middle of the reception, and then people go back in and dance. Now, you have to consider who is at your wedding reception. Is this going to be a dancey crowd? Or realistically, do you have more folks who are a little bit later in life? Is that the majority? Because oftentimes they are going to go home after the sparkler exit, even if it's at like 7:30. So in that case, if you want people to stay longer, maybe don't have a sparkler exit. But if you know that your party is like ready to go back in and dance and get crazy, then having a sparkler exit isn't going to prevent them from doing that, right? So just know your people and know what kind of night that you want to have. Another huge consideration in terms of sparklers is if you want a sparkler exit, great. Seems easy. Just buy the sparklers, have some lighters. Everyone will light their sparklers and we'll walk out. Easy enough, right? Not always that easy. Make sure that if you're doing a sparkler exit that you have, a decent amount of people, but it doesn't need to be your entire reception hall out there because they're not going to be in the photos. We're not going to see all of them. Half of them aren't going to have their sparklers lit in time anyway. Honestly, all we really need is like 10 to 20 people to do a sparkler exit photo. So the other thing to consider with that is how are they going to be lit? So I've had venue owners who are on it and they have like a little miniature blowtorch and they just have everybody put their sparklers together and he just torches them and they're all lit at once and then we go. But that's not always available. So is there someone that you can put in charge of lighting the sparklers so that your photographer isn't the one helping everybody? Because again, if your photographer is so busy trying to direct everybody, they're not really able to do their job and photograph what is about to happen. And it also doesn't give them a chance to connect with you. So again, rather than just like, oh, I don't know, hope they're ready and we just come on out, making sure that you first wait for your photographer to come back in, connect with you, give you any sort of direction or find out what you guys would like to do in the photo, and then go. That way the photographer and you guys can be working together and then someone else is getting everybody in place. Another thing to consider is where are you going to put these sparklers out? So making sure you have the big sparklers, first of all, not the little ones that we used to play with when we were kids that are like this long and they last for like 30 seconds. Those aren't going to work. But so these bigger ones that are designed to last a long time, like 2 to 3 minutes, sometimes people are just standing there for like several minutes waiting for these things to go out and they don't know what to do with them. So having some sort of bucket, making sure you clear that with your venue too is huge. And making sure that they have something like a receptacle to collect, because what you don't want is them just like leaving them on the ground or throwing them in a trash can and then the trash can catches on fire. So that hasn't happened yet, but we don't want it to. So those are some tips and tricks and suggestions on bubble exits and sparkler exits. It can be really fun, cool photo part of the day, but I would also say if it's not something that you like have your heart set on, it's a really easy thing to cut too. So just talk with each other and, make sure you discuss with your venue about sparklers first, and we can figure out a way to make sure it fits in the timeline. Take care, guys.